Almost 2 months ago, I did the inaugural Urk Marathon in the Netherlands, and normally I'm a bit faster when it comes to posting marathon videos because most of the times I'm just filming the event, edit it and post it. But this video was surprisingly a bit hard to make, and there were partly silly reasons, like I was using a different camera and the footage is very bad, to very serious matters that someone did end up being very unwell on the course and ending up passing a day later. And with how the race is set up and just the size of this much smaller marathon, which is more community based, it definitely had a bigger impact on just the general atmosphere. So I do wish all the best for the victims' family and friends, but also the people that were just in the direct surroundings, such as volunteers, the organization, the witnesses, because it was unfortunately a kind of a tragic end to what was overall just a great race. So that's something I just really wanted to start off this video with. I didn't see it happen, only the aftermath when medics were already on course and helping the runner. But my biggest takeaway from this is that no matter how training run or just a race goes, if it didn't go as how you wanted it to be, I think it's important to be grateful that we're able to do this. There will be one day where we're not able to run, and that can be due to age or just choosing not to run anymore, but sometimes it's not our choice. So it's really important to be grateful for being able to do things you love. What a start of the video. I didn't expect to have feelings about this. So let's just dive right into the marathon itself. So this was my big A race. I was hoping to create as big of a PR as possible. My PR is 4:25 from Eindhoven in 2022. And then over the course of this year, I don't understand how I was able to run faster, because at this point I'm running more, but because I don't really do enough speed work, I feel like I've gotten slower over the last few years. I will admit I've probably done some damage. If you've been following this channel, I do quite a lot of marathons and long distance running, and maybe not always justified, but I'm having fun, so I just really like being able to finish marathons. I'm trying to do the 12 provinces of the Netherlands, which is an established challenge now, but I started it before it, so I have 2 provinces that don't count for the challenge that has been set up. So once they announced Urk Marathon, which is in Flevoland, I just directly signed up. I was supposed to do a backyard ultra the week after that, but knowing myself, I wouldn't be trained enough. It was very expensive, so I rather chose to focus on Urk. I will admit I kind of signed up for the meme as well, because Urk definitely has its quirks, and it's definitely a place where stereotypically the Dutch people like to make fun of. I don't want to dive too much into that aspect, but if you're on Reddit or there's probably videos on YouTube, the long story short version is Urk was an island, and then they created Flevoland, just this whole new province, resulting into Urk being pretty much part of the country, but they still have their island traditions, their own culture. Filming this for the second time because I was yapping way too much. I really want to keep it short because I am not an example, this is just a race report. I decided to go with Fitzinger 12 weeks, 55 miles, which was way too ambitious. Secretly, I know that it's not a fitting schedule, but I'm very ambitious, just not disciplined. But if you take a closer look, while I did have only advanced marathoning, I also got faster road racing, so I am looking forward to making some improvements about just my running in general. In August, it's obviously way hotter, so I ran 2 half marathons. One was 2:06 and one was 2:07. The 2:07 was also a very challenging course, so I wasn't really enjoying it, and I think it also was a little bit too much impact on my body, so that's admittedly also the point where I just lost a lot of motivation and fell into old habits. The old habits being just focusing on the races that I've signed up for and not really training in the week surrounding it. So in September I did 2 half marathons in 2:04. They were still not in full speed because I was really afraid of injuring myself. I always like just doing races in September because there's so much offer once the fall season starts. So I did 6 weeks of productive training It was a 12-week schedule, but I like to count my mileage of 18 weeks for each marathon just to see how much I'm actually running. And the total mileage of these 18 weeks before the marathon were 715 kilometers, which averages to 40 kilometers, which I know is not enough for a proper marathon block. But comparing to my previous marathons, which were maximum of 23.5 kilometer average, upping my mileage has been a great improvement. Not all the kilometers were of quality. Before the marathon, I also did 200 kilometers of Pieterpad, but a lot of that was also walking or just very small running intervals. So I wasn't really sure in what regards that would have a positive effect on my running, but at the same time, it was a lot of time on feet. I think a big challenge to this block, because I was training so much, I was eating a lot, and I was eating maybe a little bit too much, so I was getting heavier. And usually because I don't train enough for marathons, my habits just stay pretty similar. But because I was just getting heavier, I was mentally also just starting to struggle with how I view my body, and I could just feel myself being heavy during runs. And numbers wise, it's not really that bad. It was mentally just a bit of a bummer, but luckily at the beginning of October I could just get myself back into focusing on the marathon. And despite me being a bit heavier and not being able to run the same PRs as a few years ago, my stamina has improved a lot. Going out for a run is much easier now than a few years ago, both in mentally and physically sense. Every few years I just have a season where I learn a lot about running, a lot about myself, and 2025 is definitely one of those years. So because Urk is still very religious, this race was on a Saturday, so Friday evening I already went to one of the towns close to Urk. It was about 1 hour bus ride away. I booked like a small, tiny home that had all the facilities I needed, but my sleeping schedule is not that great, so I ended up sleeping at 3 a.m. And there were a lot of mosquitoes as well, so I was just having not the best time. I had filmed like a little pre-marathon, a little vlog, but it was at 6 a.m. so I was very drowsy. The most important things to mention is that I also got my marathon shoes 2 days before the race. I just went into the store, not saying that I had a marathon in a few days, but just like I need shoes for marathons for like the 25+ kilometer runs, because that was really missing my rotation. And that's kind of weird for someone who does marathons on the regular, but I was really delaying my trip to the running store. I ended up choosing for New Balance 1080 version 14. And another important point was nutrition wise. I was also very ill prepared. I kind of realized a bit too late that I was running out of my Cliff blocks, so I kind of had to also rely on gels, which I don't really like, but that was kind of my option right now. Obviously towards the marathon I realized my big PR jump was not gonna happen, so my A goal was 4:15. My B goal was to reach my PR, which was 4:25. My C goal would be finish under 4:30. So then we had race day. I took the first bus available from Kampen, where I was, and everything went pretty smooth. It was very easy to pick up everything, so no complaints there. And I really decided to run light. So I ran without a phone, I ran without my own water and vest, and I ran with an Insta360 Go camera instead of my usual GoPro. Apologies in advance, the footage was very bad. So we started off, and unfortunately I already don't have the start line footage because my camera, it got stuck, it got warm. So, but it was very scenic because we started kind of on top of a hill and we ran down around a lighthouse, and then we went off to kind of our first round. So the course is 4 rounds of about 10 kilometers, and they decided on the direction of running in the week of the marathon to make sure to keep wind into account, because you do run along the water. So the first round was about 11 kilometers, and I just really tried to keep my pace low because the last thing I wanted today was to hit the wall. I would have liked to focus more on my pace, but I really don't like looking at my watch to know the pace. I do like to do average laps, so every so often I will press the lap button. So in the first round there was a small out and back section, which was only for the first round, and over here I could kind of see where I am in the race, and I counted only like 5 people behind me, so I was really pretty much in the back of the pack. I don't mind this because as long as I am in the time limit, I don't really care where I am in the first few kilometers, but it is very easy to get kind of self-conscious about it. So closer to the end of the first round, an older lady caught up to me. She was doing a first official marathon, and she was running on a pace to finish at 4:25, and because I obviously wanted to reach under 4:25, we decided to pretty much stick to each other for the next 20 kilometers. So it is pretty scenic, a pretty calm route, and then along the water you kind of go to another out and back, and like at the end of that out and back is kind of the measure point for the next round, and it's also where you like go straight when you finish. I didn't have much to say about the second round because I feel like, especially in a marathon, I really don't want to speed up, especially between the 10 and the 20, because around those kilometers is, if I get overconfident, I will run those too fast. So I really wanted those to just go by fast but comfortable. And I would say like the first 15 kilometers just flew by, and that's the feeling I'm looking for in a marathon. So when it comes to nutrition, I had an alarm for every 20 minutes. So every 20 minutes I would take a Cliff Block or a gel if I needed something more. And if the alarm went off right after like an aid station, I would take a small Mentos. Not the most proper running food, but I just needed some sugars. At the aid stations, they had candy, they had fruit, they had water and sports drink. They only had 2 aid stations, but because you keep passing them, you have an aid station every 5 kilometers. And I was just pouring in sugar. I've mentioned in a few videos that I just really like having oranges. They had oranges. That always makes me so happy. So I was just having a good time. And because it's such a small event, and I'm pretty much back of the pack at this point, there is so much space to run and do whatever. I'm almost saying it was definitely kind of just like maybe the placebo effect of having new shoes. Like just me knowing that these shoes are okay for a marathon just makes me kind of trust my feet to do their job, because I do have several shoes that I just got by myself, or they've just been very worn out, where I kind of start doubting that they will work for me. And I know buying shoes in the store is much more expensive than getting them online. Just being able to compare different models, it has been definitely worth it for me. Anyways, so I got to the half marathon mark and I was just feeling good. So that's really nice. So obviously I was a bit on the slower side. I could tell that my comfortable pace was about 6:15 minutes per kilometer. I was sticking to my running buddy, but I could also tell that she was slowly starting to slow down as well. So I think in the third round, around 25 kilometers, that's where I could really tell that I've been doing well with just very long distances, because I could keep up with my pace, but I saw people around me slowing down. I like seeing people around me succeed, but I also like being able to pass people, because there is just not a lot of people for me to pass with my paces, if I'm very honest about my running speed in the bigger picture. So yeah, around 25, accidentally left my running buddy because I thought we would kind of yo-yo back to each other. She was slowing down and struggling a bit, and I just kept going in the same pace. So when I got to the 29-30k mark, so that's where the medical situation was happening on the course, so we had to go around it by climbing up the dike and then go back down to the course, and it was a bigger impact on my feet and energy. But obviously in those kind of cases, the biggest priority is that that person is being helped and hopefully makes a recovery. When you do a lot of marathons, especially the bigger ones, it's kind of normal to see people get a bit unwell or struggle after like the 30K mark, but there was definitely a feeling that this was a pretty serious situation. So once you head to like this out and back section, that's where they have the time at, that's where all the supporters and family and friends are. Some people are on the course, but it's a very calm course. So when you're standing at that out and back close to the start and finish, that's where you will see the same people like 8 times because you keep going out and back. Because this was a smaller race, there weren't many people, but the people that were there were fantastic. Once I left the out and back in the 4th round, meaning that I hit 32 kilometers, I was so proud of myself because I was still feeling great. I accidentally sped up during the 32 and the 33 kilometer mark because I was just completely vibing with Taylor's new album as well. I just had that on repeat during the marathon. So I was just feeling it. Obviously, I had to kind of calm myself down again because I didn't want to blow up and have the typical marathon wall. But this is also where I start realizing we've passed the halfway mark, and my watch said the estimated time of arrival was 4:26. I didn't know how to feel in that moment because part of me knows that it is important to speed up now to kind of make up that time, but obviously this is such a delicate time in the marathon that you just don't want to overshoot. I will say that the 4x10 loops were mentally very helpful. I don't think I would have felt and ran this well if I did like my Eindhoven, which was the day after Urk. It was really easy for me to kind of divide the sections and divide my energy between the 4 rounds. So I just had a great time. So I tried to speed up, but I also knew that I had like a small hill coming up, as well as the medical situation that was still going on. And this time the curve around it was even bigger. And when I was back on the course, that's where the ambulance left. So I was also running on like big cobblestones. So kind of all these elements together, I ended up hitting the wall at like 39-40 kilometers because that's where I also just couldn't speed up anymore. And the finish was also back up a hill. So that's also where I had the realization of like, okay, this is not gonna happen. If I also want to break a PR, I would much rather do it with a few minutes rather than just a few seconds. But that's also kind of like mental gymnastics because I was struggling to get to the finish line. And I ended up finishing in 4:26:58. So I was also almost getting to the 4:27. So the overall field was 122 marathon runners. They also had a half marathon at the same time. They do 2 laps. And I finished 98th. I really like splitting my marathon in 5 kilometer laps. So this is my 5 kilometers. And as you can see, I was pretty consistent. And despite not reaching my PR, I feel like this marathon was just run much better. I was looking back at my Eindhoven stats. I could see that in like the first half, I was running under 6 minutes per kilometer. In the last part, I would run above 7 minutes per kilometer. And now I was really able to stick between the 6 and the 7 minute per kilometer mark. So it was way more consistent. So I did reach my sub 4:30 C goal. So after the race, I picked up my medal, I picked up some snacks. I had to rest a little bit because this was such an undertaking. And because the bus only leaves like once every hour, I was kind of in a rush. But I did want to explore the town a little bit more, so I went to the Urk Museum. And then I remembered that they had like photo ops at the lighthouse that were for the marathon. So I went there after the museum. I'm glad I went because they were just about to break down the numbers. Unfortunately, my photo is a little blurry because I forgot to check if the photo was good. But the biggest surprise was that I saw my running buddy, so we could kind of catch up on how the race went. And just said proper goodbyes this time. I think today my worst habit was just leaving people behind because what I wrote down in my running journal, took the next bus, chatted with a fellow runner, though I also left him behind to catch the train. So there was this one bus to train change and we only had like 1 minute to catch the train. He did a half marathon, I did a marathon, so we were both very tired. There's something in me that will just run just to catch public transport. My apologies. Just the whole journey home took forever, but I was home a bit earlier than I expected. But I had park run stuff to do the day after, so I immediately went into working on that. So it was just a very busy running weekend. I didn't reach my main goal, but I had a great time. I also wrote down, I think this was definitely my healthiest marathon yet. Had less than 5 minutes of walking, which is a huge accomplishment. Rather than walking for walking's sake, I really only did it to drink and then just wanted to continue running. So that was also kind of my shape in 2022, because that's when I did the Zevenheuvelenloop, and I really had the rule for myself to walk through water stops, but I really just wanted to run up a hill. I think that's kind of all I wanted to say about Marathon Urk. I left away with a great feeling, but then you also just have like reality kicking in. So the week following the race, they did make a statement that the person unfortunately had passed away. And I will be honest, I had a great time in Urk. Obviously, in a marathon setting, everything feels a little bit more modern, I would say. In the days following the race, Urk reached the news again because some people were very upset about a rainbow flag. So the week after that just felt a little off. But as a race, I think the organization was fantastic, organized well, got a t-shirt out of it. I feel like just the multiple laps will turn people off, because a lot of people do just really prefer a one lap scenic course. But I feel like it worked really well in my advantage. I might be very biased because I did 50 rounds of a 2-kilometer loop a few years ago, so not the right person to ask. This is the medal, and I really appreciate the ribbon because that's also just kind of the print you see there. For example, this is like my souvenir bag from the Urk Museum, also the same print. So it's nice to have a bit of thought behind the design. So after this race, I ended up doing the rest of the Pieterpad, which is gonna be a whole another video that will take me months to edit. I did Assen Marathon. I think that's gonna be the next running video that I will post, and it will probably be just a silent, scenic, atmospheric video like a lot of my previous videos. So I feel like this summer was really kind of a reality check that I am not a good marathon runner. I do feel this push or this need or this wish to run a sub 4-hour marathon. So that's something I kind of want to work towards in a more healthy way. So my big A goal for spring will be a half marathon. On a weekly basis, the runs will also be a little bit shorter, so that's something I can hopefully manage a little bit more. So I will go on to this journey again of hopefully one day complete a proper training schedule. If I really feel like it, I might do a marathon in like May or June as like a fun run kind of marathon. But I really want to focus on this half marathon in March and really try to run my best time there. So yeah, that was my Urk Marathon report. I hope it was a bit enjoyable to watch or listen. Apologies for the bad footage. And you probably saw my face more than actual marathon. I wasn't even really sure whether I wanted to do this video in English and Dutch. I feel like Dutch would have made much more sense because this is such a small event. And I feel like Dutch people are also just very more aware of the whole Urk thing. But I feel like I've established myself too much as an English YouTuber for me to change it now. But who knows, maybe I will make a Dutch running video at some point. So if you've gotten to this point, thank you for watching. Please give me a thumbs up. And maybe I'll see you next time for a much faster race. Because I need to work on my speed.